Welcome back. It can be hard for young people of color entering the business world. Quite often, the deck is stacked against them. Former Group Vice President of Global Quality and New Model Launch for Ford Motor Company, Bennie Fowler, is committed to making sure that young people in the business world have mentors and access to opportunities, and he's dedicating his life to that goal. Bennie, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, before I get into what you're doing for the young people of America today, let me ask you where it all started for you.
Well, I grew up in Augusta, Georgia in the mid-50s, 1956, so I'm dating myself a little bit here. And grew up in the housing projects in Augusta, Georgia, and went to elementary school at a little school called Ursula Collins, and went on to T.W. Josie High, and then ultimately I went to my undergrad at Central State University. So kind of just a little run through of kind of how things started with me.
It's an amazing journey that you've had to make it to the top of your profession. And as you were making it up that ladder to success, what are some of the things that you had to do so that you now pass it on to young people to perhaps follow or emulate your footsteps?
Well, the big thing is, by 20 years old, you really have to know something. And for me, it started with the spiritual base and the spiritual background. My parents made sure that I went to church on Sunday, not every Sunday, but enough to kind of establish
to have it ingrained in you.
To have the spiritual core, which I think is really the essence of what you're going to have, because life is filled with challenges and really is going to boil down to your beliefs and the core essence of who you are. Yeah. Education is an important part of it, and my parents stressed education and becoming educated, and obviously for me being a part of sports, I think there's a lot of values that you learn from sports, the competition, the preparation, the grind of, if you really want to be great at any of this, it's really about the work and the preparation you put in.
So it's all about the work ethic and that whole person concept, mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
And then you played basketball? Is that what you did in school?
I played basketball and baseball. I was in the marching band.
Yeah.
I was an editor of a newspaper staff when I was growing up in school. So I kind of had a well-rounded background in terms of growing up. And all of these pieces is really about when you get to a certain start, it's about the story you can put together, because when you come out of school, you really don't have a lot of work experience.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's really what your grade point average is, or were you involved in it, and what are the things that you actually learn and you're able to contribute to a business and getting started.
So Bennie, take us through what you do for young people today, especially our young, gifted, and black children and our youth who aspire to greatness, yet they don't always know how to get there. How do you help them build that roadmap?
Well, I ran a youth organization called Power Stroke Athletics, and at one time I did that for about 15 years, and the basis of it was the mental, physical, and spiritual aspects, as you talked about mind, body, and soul, but we called it mental, physical, and spiritual. Mental meaning focus, the spiritual meaning belief in yourself, believe in your teammates, believe in your coaches, and the aspects for that were the basic foundation of what we did. We expect the kids to be on time, and we talked to them about the reason for that. We wanted them to talk to us about what they learned, and after practice every day, we would have one of the kids, whether they were 6, 7, or 8, start to do public speaking, so to speak.
That's great.
So at the end of it, one of the kids would have to be designated, and then some would raise their hand, and if not, one of the coaches would volunteer someone to speak. And what was important about that is having these kids really grow the fundamental beliefs in themselves. The competition and how we put them through the training was not easy. It was a little bit different than just rolling the balls out.
So it's rigorous.
It was a rigorous curriculum that we put the kids through. And then it was always amazing to me to see some of these 6, 7, 8-year-old kids, as they went into 13 and 14, go from crying and being afraid to speak to basically raising their hand and say, hey, I want to have a conversation with you today.
So you caught them at the right time, Bennie. You caught them in their early years, which paves the way for their adolescence. Yes. And then goes on to pave the way for their collegiate years and young adult years. Now, For those of us who have grown up like that, we sometimes make mistakes. How do you get them back on track if they make a mistake and feel like they can't get over that? I always believe that you can always have a comeback.
Right. Well, I mean, I often talk to kids about when you go through life, it's not going to be perfect, and there are going to be challenges in the road, and you may have some failure. But the key point is you can't give up. You know, you have to learn from the successes and you have to learn from the failures, and both have important lessons that you can learn, things that you could build on if they helped you succeed, and the lessons to be learned when you really go through the adversity, and then you try to figure out, you know, what were the challenges there, and how do you keep moving on. And I can't say that everything that I did was perfect, because I ended up having to leave a couple of companies to start off with. I mean, I started off as an intern at GM. I went on to get my graduate work at Indiana. I spent about 5 years at Chrysler, and then I went on to a 27-year career at Ford.
Wow.
And
Wow.
within inside of that, the one thing that I would say to everyone is every time you make these changes, you don't know how it's going to come out. So you have to take that chance. You have to take the leap, and you have to move forward.
Take the risk.
And I mean, I call them risk at the time, but every one of these moves seem to be scary, because if you have a job and it's paying good, some people say, well, you're crazy to leave that because you have a job. But in the end, if someone is saying to you, you need these credentials in order for you to move forward, either you listen to it and prepare for that to move forward, and that's really what I try to convey to everyone.
So Bennie, let me ask you a question then. A young African-American male and female, they make it into corporate America. How do they climb the ladder of success? Do you have a program to help teach them and mentor them on that strategy?
Yes, since I've been out the last 2 years, I've spent some time working on Chief Operating Officers Academy.
So it's called C-Suite, as I understand it?
No, it's just kind of, it is part of being in the C-suite, but a chief operating officer is likely the number 2 in a company. And it has a lot of responsibility around making the assets more productive, making the people more productive, and helping create value. So the big thing learning for me is every step of the way, you're going to have very challenging assignments that form the basis of your abilities to say, if there's only one person that's going to go into the sweet seat, it would be me. So if you look at the series of assignments I've had, and probably the last 8 or 9 at Ford were assignments that were growing in levels of responsibility moving forward. And for me, there's a basic set of operating principles that help define, or when I go into an operation, help deliver success. It's not guaranteed, but what you try to do is, just like writing a playbook, you really try to capture the essence of what's going on, and these are the things that I'm working to share with people of color and anyone that would like to take advantage of it. And that's really what I'm working on today.
Bennie, thank you. Keep doing it. Keep helping the young people. I appreciate you being on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us on the Kelly Wright Show. You're a blessing to a lot of young people in America, and you made it to the top of the profession.